All right, welcome to part 4 of How to Be Rich. Really glad that you're with us this morning. It's going to be really good. My name's Tom, and lead pastor here, and get to teach on this good stuff this morning. So back when I was in seminary, one of the classes, one of the areas I focused in on was counseling, and one of the classes that we took is really fascinating. It was called Family Systems Counseling. In other words, you work with families, and you learn about the system of the family. And one of the things that I discovered is that the family system is such a powerful influencer. You are who you are because you're family. And one of the tools that we focused in on was called a genogram. If you've, I don't know your work, if you've ever studied genograms, they're pretty fascinating. What they are is essentially a really complicated family tree. And you can go back about 3 or 4 generations and you begin to trace and look at different dynamics within the family, like relationships, who was closest to who didn't get along, was there tension, was there conflict, was there divorce, things like addictions, mental illness, they tended to, this is what was fascinating, repeat. Like there's this cycle that was repeated generation after generation after generation. And so one of the things that we learned was like, how can you identify those in families? Because sometimes destructive, hurtful behavior is repeated. And so how can you identify it, figure out how to break those cycles? And so it was a really helpful tool that you can work on with people that are getting married or people that are going through difficult times. You just kind of look at some things and observe. Maybe you're repeating some habits, some cycles that happened in your family. And now for some of us, that's there can be good and bad with that, because there's some good things, your family taught you that you picked up on. And obviously there can be some bad things too that you want to break. Here's one of the things that was fascinating when I personally did the genogram for my own family, my Steele side of the family, is that there was a few cycles that I had noted going back a couple generations. And one of the things that stopped it, that actually flipped the script and turned things around, was when my grandpa and my grandma both decided to follow Jesus. And that broke some cycles and some chains in our family, and things were different after that. In fact, pretty dramatically different, and how career paths changed. So many of us decided to go into to be pastors or work in ministry. It was just really fascinating seeing how things changed when one person made a decision to do things differently, and in this case, to follow Jesus. So why do I bring all of that up, especially in regards to money? Well, because most of us here have been influenced, rightly or wrongly, from our parents, grandparents, someone in our family, on how we look at money, how we view money, how it's used in our everyday life. It's just a fact. And that's probably what's happened. And if it wasn't your family, then you've come out into the world and you've been influenced probably by peers, by culture, by what we see on TV, what you see an advertiser trying to get you to buy things, and what you should have, what you deserve, all those things that are trying to get us, to convince us to buy something. We're influenced with so many messages all over the place about finances. So how do we know how to handle it? Now, why this is so important, and if you've missed out on any of this series, you should go back and listen to the first 3 sermons that we had on this. But what we're really drilling down on is this simple truth, is that we're rich. We're rich. Now, you may not feel rich, you may not think you're rich, but that's because you live in America where everyone's rich. But if you were honest and look globally at the global economy, you live in the richest economy, in the richest country in the world, and you have so much more than the rest of the world. If you were to put yourself up against people on the other side of the globe, you're in probably the top 1 or 2% of wage earners in the world. To take everything you have and to put it in some of these villages or places around the world, you would be king or queen. You would be the one in charge. You would be the rich person. And we forget that. And so this whole idea of being rich, it's this moving target. And what we're trying to drill down to is the fact that, okay, well, I'm just going to own it. I'm going to own it that I'm rich. I'm just going to say I'm rich. That's who I am. But I want to be good at being rich. And many of the people in our culture, they're bad at being rich because they don't realize they're rich, and so they're not paying attention and don't want to be good at being rich. And we want to flip that around and be good at it. And why it's so important is that Jesus said it is hard. It's hard to be good at being rich. He says it's hard for a rich man to get into the kingdom of God because wealth, money, clouds our vision. Greed keeps us from really seeing the truth. And so we're trying to push through that, and they just acknowledge that we're rich, but let's be good at being rich. So what's one of the obstacles of being good at being rich? And that is the fact that so many people are lost in regards to their personal finances. As you saw there in the video, some of us get into situations with debt, make some horrible choices, and find ourselves way off the beaten path, way in deep weeds, some places that we shouldn't be. And we give up, we get frustrated, we don't know what to do, and we just absolutely feel lost. Let's take a quick quiz here. I just wanted to help you figure out if you're lost regarding your personal finances. And so we're going to do a little eight question quiz here, see where you kind of fall in this whole idea of being lost. So here's the first one. If you spend more than you make, you're probably lost in regards to your personal finances. All right, that's the first question. Number 2, if you don't know whether you spend more than you make, you're probably lost regarding your finances. Number 3, if you don't care you spend more money than you make, you're probably lost in your personal finances. In other words, you're like, yeah, just give up, I don't know, who cares, doesn't matter. You're probably lost. Number 4, if you're paying the minimum on your credit card, if paying the minimum on your credit card is a way of life, you're probably lost regarding your finances. Number 5, if paying the minimum on your credit card is considered good financial planning, you're probably lost, okay, in regards to your finances. Number 6, if you make over $80,000 annually and you feel significant pressure financially, you're probably lost in regards to your finances. Number 7, if you're making financial decisions that your spouse doesn't know about, you're probably lost in your personal finances. Just heads up there. And number 8, if you're making financial decisions that the IRS doesn't know about, you're probably lost in regards to your finances. All right, so there's a little quiz there to take. How'd you do? How'd you do on that? If you're feeling like you're lost, like you've answered yes to any of those questions, you're probably lost or kind of not where you need to be. I want you to realize something, okay? This isn't this morning a morning to dump guilt on you, make you feel bad. This is a morning to turn things around. Because more than likely, you're in a room where there's some other people that are lost in regards to their finances. All right? I want you to know that. There's also some people here that used to be lost and were in a bad place. And so they turn things around and they care. They understand where you've been. This is a group effort this morning where we want to just acknowledge like where we are in our finances. And if we're lost, if we're in that debt trap, we want to start turning things around and figuring out how we can get on a different path. That's what this is about. But here's why it is so hard, and something that we need to talk about is the voices, the messages that you get. You still have those deep habits, those deep ideas about what money is that you get from your family. Okay, you still have to deal with that. The good stuff, yeah, but there's probably some bad stuff that has to be changed. But how are you going to change that? Who are you going to listen to? And you get the messages from peers, from culture. So there's all these different messages bombarding us every day. And I feel it. I know you have to feel it too. Of who do I listen to? Who do I trust? Who's the person that I go to that I know is going to lead me where I need to go, to get me out of the debt trap, out of the wrong path so that I can find freedom. I just read in a book recently about it was a young woman who was a jet fighter pilot, and she was doing maneuvers. This happened just a few years ago, and she was doing maneuvers, listening, paying attention to her computer and doing all the different training exercises that she needed to do. And what happened is she pulled back, and she was going to make a steep ascent and just go straight up. The problem was she didn't realize is that she was actually upside down. And when she did that, she went right into the ground, and it was a horrible accident. And what they determined was she thought she was going in the right direction. She was paying attention to all of her navigational equipment, and she was trusting and said, this has to be the right way. And so it was just complete trust in this message that she was getting, but it was wrong. And here's one of the things I'm concerned about all of us is like, what messages are we listening to? And how do we know that we can trust them, that they're taking us in the right direction, especially when it comes to your money? And you may not think money's a big deal, but it is a big deal. because it affects all areas of our life. And so what I want to do this morning is I want to suggest a guide. There's someone that can help us get back on track regarding our personal finances, especially if you're lost. How can you begin to turn it around? And here's who I want to suggest we should follow, and that's Jesus. I think Jesus is the very best person to follow in regards to finances. Now, I'm sure you're probably chuckling to yourself, because you don't see Jesus in a jacket and a tie and an adding machine, as someone like, I should go to Jesus, to help me figure out my finances. You just don't view Jesus in that way, do we? We think of him as the one that died on the cross for our sins, was resurrected, and he is the way, the truth, and life. And we think of all other areas of our life, but we don't stop and think that Jesus may be the one that we need to pay attention to and follow in regards to finance, especially if we're lost. But I don't know if you realize this, but Jesus said more about your money and your possessions than he said about anything else. He said more about money and possessions than he said about heaven or hell combined, okay? Jesus has a lot to say about all areas of your life, but especially your possessions. And do you wonder why that is? It's because evidently Jesus thought that it was important that you learned how to handle these things and to handle them well. I want to say this statement. Write it down, because I think you need to know this, and that's this. If you devote your life to following Jesus, you will not be lost in your personal finances. If you devote your life to following Jesus, you will not be lost in your finances, because Jesus is that clear. He is the starting point to help you learn how to deal with money and your possessions. And so for the next few minutes, I just want to give you 3 reasons why, from the lips of Jesus himself, 3 verses that he shared that kind of say, okay, man, maybe Jesus is someone that I've kind of tuned out in regard to what I have, and maybe I need to tune him in and pay attention to what he has. So here's 3 reasons why Jesus is worth following regarding your finances. Here's the first one. Jesus knows that your finances start in the heart. Your finances start in the heart. Now, whenever Jesus talks about the heart, he's talking about your true you, your soul, okay? It's a spiritual thing. And all of us here know that there's 2 parts to us, that there is our outside self that we project to one another here in this room and as we go around our public life, but we know that there's a true us inside, and that's your spirit. That's the part of you that needs to be shaped and to grow and to be transformed, and that's our true you, the part of us that lasts forever. And so Jesus often refers to the word heart. He's talking about your true you, your spirit, and your soul. And what Jesus has identified, and I'll read this verse in just a second, but what he's identified is that we as human beings, we are always putting values on something. We're putting values on a person when they walk in the room. We put a value on them. We put, are they worth talking to? Are they someone I want to get to know? And we do that when we watch a commercial and we see a car. We put a value on that. Is that something that I want? Is that something that I need? We do that with clothes. We put values, treasure, or dollar signs, and all kinds of different things. And the word Jesus uses for that is treasure. So you and I as human beings, we're putting a treasure sign or a value sign on every single thing. Now here's why this is significant. Listen to what Jesus says in Matthew chapter 6, verse 21. He says, for where your treasure is, so where your values, what is it that you value? For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. What's your heart? Your true you, your spirit. All right? So he says, where your treasure is, whatever you deem is valuable, okay, it could be a relationship, it could be your job, your career, your retirement, your vacation, whatever you value, it's directly connected. In fact, there's like a chain or there's a rope connected to that, and it's connected to your spirit, to your heart. Now, anyone here have like a Labrador or some kind of retriever dog? Anyone have that? A few of you? Okay. So if you've been around any of these retriever dogs, in their DNA, it's just wired into them. They want to go and chase that stick, the frisbee, the duck, whatever it is. They will chase it down and get it. And then you hold that stick over them, and they'll just sit there and they'll wag their tail, and they're just waiting. They're just waiting. You throw it, and they go get get it, and they get it, and they bring it back, and then they'll wait, and they'll do it again, because that's what they were wired to do. And so what Jesus is saying is, you as people are wired the same thing. Whatever you put a value on, your spirit, your soul is going to go all in, and you're going to get it. Okay? And we do that in relationships. We do that with our careers. We put a value on our career. We're going to go get it. It could be money. We put that value on it, and our heart does everything and redirects all of our life to go and to get that, to reach that goal. So what is so important here is Jesus realizes that when we start talking about money, when we start talking about possessions, that all these things, that our heart is going to follow after it if we value it more than anything else. And this is why sometimes we get into really some serious problems. We get lost regarding our personal finances. It's because we put a value on it, and we shift our entire life to get those things. But the problem is that clothes in your closet that you thought were so important last year that you haven't worn and aren't probably going to wear again, are going to go to Goodwill. You've invested a lot of time and energy towards that, and it's just going to go away. And we chase after so many things that actually end up hurting our heart, hurting our spiritual selves. And what Jesus wants us to understand is, like, if we're going to move out of this world of being lost, especially in regards to our personal finances, we have to determine what our treasure is. And our treasure can't be money, it can't be possessions, it can't be that vacation you want to take. It has to be something else. It has to be something that impacts you and changes you spiritually. And so Jesus understands that this is an issue of the heart. This is a heart issue when we talk about it. Isn't it funny how money is just like paper? You know, money is just, it's not good or evil, it's just paper. And anymore, it's not even paper, it's some number on some screen in some database, of somewhere, on some server somewhere. That's all it is. But when you attach a value to it, it becomes spiritual, it becomes something deeper. And so this is a heart issue, and Jesus wants to go after your heart. That's why he's someone I want to follow. Like, he cares about me spiritually, now and for eternity. And so what do you treasure? Do you treasure Jesus, or do you treasure something else? So here's the second reason why Jesus is worth following with your personal finances, and that's this. Jesus knows that your identity is not your money or your stuff. Jesus knows that your identity, who you really are, is not your money or your stuff. So every single one of us in this room, everyone in our community, they're on a life quest, okay? Every single one of us are on a life quest. We are on this journey to figure out life. We want to have the best life, the happy life, the fulfilled life, the content life. We're all looking for the life. And what we've determined currently in this culture that we live in is that your life is equal to what you have, what you wear, what you look like, what you possess. And so your identity now is the Maddie or the Petty or Manny that you have. It's the clothes that you wear, how you wear your hair. Okay, it's the clothes, it's the car that you drive, it's Instagram, right? Instagram maybe is the best example of this, because literally you will spend, I know of young ladies, I won't name any names, who take literally hundreds of pictures to get the right picture, and then they will post it on Instagram, and everyone will see that picture that they've spent minutes and minutes and minutes trying to get, and they'll say, oh, that's who they are. Not realizing they've taken all this time to get the perfect picture, to get the right look. And that's just a small snapshot of what we're talking about, is we're working so hard to present ourselves in this perfect, in this beautiful, in this glamorous life. But it's all a facade, isn't it? Isn't that what it is? And is it really truly life? If you're selling those things and giving away those things in just a few years, you're moving on to what's next. That can't possibly be life, is it? Jesus says that in Luke chapter 12, verse 15. Here's what he says. He said to them, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. So you can have greed for more than just money. It can be greedy for everything, anything. But then he says this, life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Your life is not equal to your bank account. Your life is not equal to the clothes that you wear. Your life is not equal to the car in your driveway. And the reality is, some of us have taken some shortcuts. Okay, we've gone into debt to create the look. And so we end up in the debt trap, or we end up lost in our personal finances, all because we've tried to create an identity that isn't even really life. And what I want to suggest is that Jesus is trying to teach us that true life comes from following after him first. And that if we're going to turn it around and get out of the debt trap and begin to get on that path of life, it's going to be making a decision that Jesus knows what's best, that he is worth following in regards to our personal finances. Number three, third reason why Jesus is worth following through personal finances is that Jesus knows that there is a battle for control of your life. Okay, Jesus knows that there's a battle for control. That there is a war being waged within this room. That there's decisions, that there are challenges that we're all facing over who's going to get control. He understands that, and he addresses that. I don't know if you've ever been in a work situation where you have your boss, and then there's someone above you who also thinks that you're your boss, okay? And they're all telling you what to do. Have you ever been in that situation where you don't know who to listen to, or you're trying to please both people, and there's just like this tension amongst you? Another example of this might be if you have a best friend, a best bud, bestie, and then you get married, and you're still trying to deal with, okay, who am I going to, please? You want to hang out with the boys, you want to go be with your friend, but then you have your spouse over here, and who do you align with? It always creates for some great conversations, trust me, about, who's your true alignment to, who you should be honoring, but we feel that tension about who we're going to listen to, who we're going to please. And we all feel this tension not only in other relationship parts of our life, but we also feel this in regards to our money, in regard to our finances, and to following the Lord. Here's what Jesus said. I'm going to make sure, I think I got this verse wrong first service, but is it Matthew 6:13? I think that's what it is. Here's what Jesus says about that. Matthew 6:24. Here we go. So it's wrong in your notes. Make sure and change that. No servant can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. So Jesus just lays it out there. He says, listen, there's this battle for control over your heart that's going on. And it's there. You, at some point, have to make a decision about who is going to be in control. Now, I bring this up for all of us who are Christians here. If you're not a Christian, this doesn't apply to you right now, maybe in the future, but right now, if you're a Christian, I realize that there is a struggle that a lot of you feel when you come into church. And we start having these conversations because you feel a little bit of guilt. You feel this tension about who ultimately is in control. You know you should probably be doing more in regards to being generous to the things God cares about, but there's this other side that is battling out, and it's paying off debt, or it's trying to get the next car, whatever it is for you. There's this back and forth that's going on, this tension that you feel. And what Jesus wants you to know is that at some point you just have to make a decision, and you have to acknowledge this person's going to be in control of my life. This is the person that's going to be in control of my finances. And for the reality is, a lot of us are not in control of our finances. You know who is? The credit card companies, the bank, the people that keep sending you those bills every month. They're the ones that seem to be in control of your life. Wouldn't you agree? Have you ever felt that? Like, oh, they just keep taking and taking and taking from me. And they're in control. And what we want to do is we want to flip that around and say, God, I want you to be in control, and I want to be in control of my money, because right now it doesn't feel like I'm in control. In fact, my money controls me. So Jesus acknowledges you need to make a decision about who is going to control your personal finances. So here's just three simple reasons, just three basic verses that Jesus taught that instructs us and says, okay, whoa, maybe Jesus is someone I need to pay attention to if I'm going to get out of the debt trap. I'm not going to be lost anymore in my finances. So here's a plan. If you're ready to say, okay, I want to turn this around, here's a 3-step plan that you can start today and that you can start to do. And here's the first thing, and that is you need to give Jesus control over your life, especially your finances. You need to give Jesus control of your life. In the church world, we often use the phrase, you need to make Jesus Lord over your life. That he is the ultimate decision maker, that he is the one that controls your life. Now, it just sounds so weird for us to say that, because as Americans especially, we're free, we get to do whatever we want. But the reality is, we all choose who is going to control us. And for some of us, we've chosen to allow debt to control us. We've allowed the desire for other possessions and things to control us, but we want to flip that around and we say, Jesus, I want you to be in control of my life, but especially when it comes to my personal finances. And so what you're doing is, and this would be true of any area of your life, if you're lost, period, the starting place, the moment where you start to turn things around is when you say, Jesus, I want you to be in control of my life. And I just want to tell you this, it is so freeing to say those words, to just acknowledge that you are lost and that Jesus can turn it around. So it starts there, putting Jesus in control. Here's the second thing, is that you need help. You just need help. Every single one of us, if you're lost, we need help. And for those who I know who have been lost in their personal finances and aren't anymore, they will tell you verbatim that it was people, it was the resources, it was others that helped them move from where they were to finding freedom. You need help. Now here's the good thing. You're in a place where we want to help. You have people here, and I don't want you to be embarrassed about this. There are people here that have been in your shoes, who are probably in your shoes right now. Do not be embarrassed. Don't feel like you're the only one here, that I'm just talking to you, because I'm not. I'm talking to you about something we all have struggled with and have been lost at different moments and maybe are now. So understand, this is a safe place, a good place, where we have resources for you to help you get back on track. What I need you to do is just let me know. Contact me. I'm going to ask you to use the First Step card in front of you here in just a little bit. If you need resources, use that. We will send you. We have video resources. We have money managing books. We even have some people you could personally be put in contact with to help you begin to manage this and turn it around. And so let us help you. Just know that we're on your team, because when you're allowing your money to be managed by the Lord, where you're following Jesus, then all of a sudden our whole team, we're better. We're better. We can be better at being rich, not only here in Iowa City, but all over the place, because we've allowed Jesus to be in control. And here's the third and last thing, and that is you need a plan. You need to have a plan for your money. If you've been here throughout this series, you know that this has been a sticking point every single week. And you know why it is? Because if you're to walk into any establishment, any any money managing establishment, they are going to ask you what your plan is. What are your goals? What do you have? What are you currently doing now? Where do you want to be? Every single one of them are. Why would it be any different for us if we're trying to honor the Lord with what we have and to get out of debt, to move forward? You have got to have a plan. Now here's a basic plan. It doesn't have to be the best plan or the only plan, but a simple plan that we've talked about over the last few weeks is, first of all, prioritize your giving. Give to the things God cares about first. Save for the rainy day. Save for whatever's around the corner. And then cut some spending. Non-essentials need to go. Live on what means are left over, and then figure out what's that first thing you can pay off. The lowest piece of debt that you're in, how can you pay that off? Begin to get a snowball so you can pay off all the other debt that's against you. But you need some kind of plan that you can begin to enact, because nothing will be turned around. Nothing will change if you don't have a plan that you start working today. All right? So here's what I want to do as we wrap this thing up. And that's simply this. Any kind of life change is hard. This is hard. You are currently, right now, the product of your disciplines, your habits, and your choices. That's who you are right now. And if you realize that you're lost and you need to change, you're going to have to change your disciplines and your habits and your choices. And that is just hard. There's just no way around it. And so this is going to be a process. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's trusting the Lord every day, that His way is the best way, and being faithful to each and every step along the way. It is hard. I don't know why, for some reason, we as Christians have just said, you know what, following Jesus and being a Christian, like, this is just easy. You pray a prayer and you just pray, God bless me every day, and you're all good. But it's not. To be a follower of Jesus is hard work. It requires discipline. It requires sacrifice. And that's why Jesus said, if anyone wants to be my disciple, he must take up his cross and follow me. Meaning, every day you choose to sacrifice a part of yourself. You lay down a part of yourself. You make a disciplined, hard work decision every day to align your life with Jesus. And that's all areas of your life, especially your money. But here's the payoff. Here's the payoff, and this is where it's good. Jesus said, whoever wants to save their life will lose it. If you pursue after finding this life and trying to gather possessions and money and just keep going into debt, you're not going to find life. In fact, Jesus says you keep that, you're going to lose. But he says, whoever is willing to lose their life for my sake will find life. And if we're on a life quest, and I want to follow Jesus. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to realign and follow after him. Remember how I opened with the genogram about how you change cycles, you change things around? Maybe today is the day that you change it around for your life, for your family's life, because you made a decision to follow Jesus, because he's the best way to live life, and he's the best way to know how to handle your finances. Father God, I pray over this group, and I just am so thankful that they're here. I just pray you watch over them and bless them as they make some tough, courageous decisions. For those of us who've been blessed and aren't lost at all, I pray, Father, that we would have the courage to help others, help those around us, to make some of these decisions, just to be an encouragement to those who feel lost, and to let them know that they're not alone. But Father, for anyone here that does feel lost, that doesn't know if they can even do this, help them know that you're there, that you'll walk alongside them, that there's a church family that will partner with them, and that this is something that can happen as they daily learn to trust in Jesus. Thank you for reaching out to us and to love us through Jesus, that he is our everything. And it's in his name we pray. Amen. Hey,